Hello, Facebook people. It is 1:15. Like I mentioned, I was going to go live at 1:15 for to talk about ADHD and ADD. And this was a topic kind of on my list to talk about, but it was moved to the front today, so I really want to touch on it. So I'm talking to all you people who either suspect kiddo, and even adult, we can talk about adults too, but primarily kiddos, have ADHD or ADD, or perhaps your doctor has said they have ADHD or ADD. So really for anyone who is sort of wrestling with that, are we going to put them on meds? Is there something we can try first? Or maybe we're already on meds and you see such a dim in their personality that you'd really like to change that. So we're going to give just a few minutes. If you don't know who I am, I'm Audrey Christie McLaughlin. I'm a registered nurse, certified clinical master of aromatherapy, master's of nursing student. I am a Reiki master, Ripple Magic facilitator, and diplomat of homeopathics. So basically, I'm all things freaking natural and holistic. And so I like to use that information to help my people be their best selves and shine their brightest and avoid all of those nasty things going around. So hopefully you guys will find this useful. Again, we're talking about, hi Nellie, we're talking about ADHD and ADD, and sort of what to do when you get diagnosed or when, when you have the suspicion, right? What to try first. So first off, if you've been diagnosed, or your child, we're talking about kiddos primarily, but this can be pertinent to adults too. But if your kiddo's been diagnosed or suspected of ADHD by their physician, ask your doctor to check 3 things: aluminum toxicity, magnesium levels, and vitamin D levels. Now, if you have a kid that's a real screamer around needles and you don't want to do that, that's okay. You can try the solutions for that without having to draw the blood work. But if you're already seeing a doctor and a doctor's like, gosh, we really think little Timmy's got ADHD, then that's certainly something to try, because you'll find a high percentage of people that have, or kiddos that have been diagnosed with that, have aluminum toxicity or borderline aluminum toxicity. And let's talk about where you can get that. So if you eat stuff out of a can, you can get that. If you use toothpaste or deodorant with aluminum ingredients, you can get that. If your child is around smokers regularly, every time they inhale a little bit of that secondhand smoke, they're getting a big dose of aluminum something, okay? And so that can be very toxic. And in adults, that leads to things like Alzheimer's. There's studies that show that aluminum toxicity is one of the biggest contributing factors to Alzheimer's. So the second thing I said was magnesium levels. Gosh, magnesium is responsible for over 300 little chemical, magical, energetic reactions that happen in a little human's body, okay? And so having a low magnesium level can cause poor sleep. It can cause attention deficit troubles, problems focusing, muscle cramps, all the way to heart palpitations, personality disorders like depression and bipolar and a lot of different things. So that's definitely something to have checked. And the good news is, and I'll talk about this a little bit more after I talk about vitamin D, but the good news is you can correct, you don't have to go get tested for these things. The corrections for these, because they occur in so many people, it's quite likely you need these corrections anyways, and you can't, it's really difficult to overcorrect the problem. So you're not going to overdo your magnesium or your vitamin D, chances are. Okay. Oh, and I'll throw in this disclaimer. Yes, I am a health professional, but ultimately you are responsible for your health. So anything that I say here, please know that it is for informational purposes only. And if you would need or like a consultation, you can do so with your health provider or contact me. But this doesn't count as a consultation. So run everything, do your due diligence, run everything through that intuitive filter, and take what works and resonates and leave what doesn't. Okay. Back to the good stuff. Okay, vitamin D was the third thing I talked about. Vitamin D is responsible for processing that magnesium. It can help eliminate that aluminum from the body. Vitamin D is called a vitamin, and I'm not going to go into all the science on this unless somebody wants me to, but vitamin D is actually a hormone. So vitamin is sort of a misnomer for that. But vitamin D is responsible for all sorts of reactions, just like magnesium, that help prevent focus problems, depression, all the way to bone and calcium absorption, okay? So it's really, really important. So when you first hear whispers of could he or she be ADHD or ADD, then those are the three. I wonder if that call interrupted us. Hope not. Okay. People shouldn't call during my live streams. So those three things: aluminum toxicity, magnesium, vitamin D, right? Those are three things. Now, so what can you do outside of knowing those three facts? You got to make big changes, and you got to do them for at least 30 days. And pardon my language, this can be a real pain in the ass with kids, okay? It just can be, especially if your kid has eaten, there's no really nice way to say it. If they've opened a package to eat most of the things they've eaten in their life. And I had lunch with my kids at school yesterday, and I was appalled at what people were eating, what children were eating. It was just, I had the conversation with another parent there. I was just shocked. But, so for 30 days, 30, you're not going to have anything. Kiddos aren't going to have anything out of a package. They're not going to have any fast food. And what do I mean by out of a package? If it didn't come from the produce section, the dairy section, and I don't avoid those silly little sweet yogurts, or the meat department. So we're talking produce, dairy, if your child can have dairy, high quality dairy, or the meat department, then they're not going to put it in their mouths. So it can be a big change. And I hear a lot of complaints like, well, my kid doesn't like the texture of fruit. Well, they'll learn to like it because they're going to be their only option for 30 days. Nellie, you're right. It is so important. Now, a lot of people think, well, a lot of people have a lot of emotions tied to food, right? So they're like, well, that poor child, they won't ever get a cupcake ever again. That's not exactly the case, but you got to give them at least 30 days. 30 days to figure out, or for their bodies to detox and for it to make a change. And sometimes that means calling the school and saying little Timmy is allergic to all of these things, so that they don't end up with a birthday cake or a well-meaning teacher giving a treat, or, snatching somebody's fruit snacks at lunch, because good Lord, there were fruit snacks all over that cafeteria. But you want to only feed them nothing out of a package from those sections for 30 days. Now, on top of that, if you have access, and I realize not everybody does, but if you have access to organic fruits and vegetables, that's going to be the way to go. And if you don't, there's certain fruits and vegetables that we will just skip if the organic isn't available, such as strawberries or apples. So look up something called the Deadly Dozen, or the Dirty Dozen, depending on where you get it. And that's going to be a list of fruits and vegetables that you really want to only stick to organic. And most places have access to organic food somewhere, somehow, okay? And then, of course, you can take it as far as looking at your beef and your chicken and your fish. And that's much harder to find, and is also quite cost intensive. So I'm not as quick to recommend it, but just buy the best quality that you can. You want to give the kids good quality protein, no processed lunch meats, stay away from hot dogs. Like, it needs to be beef, ham, or chicken, and that's it, okay? Or beef, ham, or chicken. Beef, pork, or chicken, and that's it. And so that's really, really important. That's sort of step one. Absolutely avoid all sugar and all caffeine. Absolutely, for ADHD and ADD for the first 30 days. And that even counts a little bit for fruit. So, some kids might say, well, that's fine. I'll eat fruit, and I'll eat only fruit. Well, that's not doing a lot of good, because there's still fructose in the fruit. And although it's better for you by a long shot than processed beet sugar and cane sugar and all of those things, you can still overdo it. So really try to have a good balance there. Lots of colors, okay? Other things you can do. So let's talk supplements. And a lot of people will say, well, gosh, I don't want to put my kid on supplements, but then they're going to let their doctor put them on Ritalin or whatever the ADHD medicine of the day is, okay? So things to try first, omega-3s. If your kiddo's old enough to swallow pills, then I suggest Omega Blue, or I don't know if you can see this. And I still haven't figured out, Nellie, if you're still hanging around, if that shows up backwards or not, but Omega Gies. And the reason, so I'm showing you Young Living. There are other good brands available. You want to make sure that it's fish oil, so it's not plant-based omega-3. You want to make sure it's just omega-3 or omega-3 and CoQ10. And you want to follow my formula where you follow the dose. Oh, well, you're popping in and out of connection. So sorry. So where you follow the dose on the bottle, and then you add 1 pill a day until you get loose stools, and then you back off. Okay, that's going to be your optimal dose of omega-3s. As I mentioned, a magnesium supplement. You want to let them out into the sunlight for 20 to 30 minutes a day without sunscreen. If you don't have that availability, you can certainly take a vitamin D supplement. They make chewable ones. If your kid's not old enough to swallow pills, there's chewable options. And this one's got a lot of sugar in it, but my kids don't have ADD or ADHD, and this is about the only sugar they get all day long. So that is also an option. If I talked about magnesium, so you can use magnesium spray, magnesium pills, vitamin D supplementation, but the best vitamin D is getting out in the sun, okay? And then there's some physical things you can do. So a lot of times kids with ADD or ADHD, they have trouble calming themselves. And so there's a few different tricks you can use to do that. There's 2 points called the frontal neurovascular points. And they're just below my forehead wrinkles here. No, they're just above the eyebrows. And so I'm trying to see myself on the screen and watch. So you can have kids massage those neurovascular points, and it'll help them focus. So that's super helpful during homework, in school, if they're old enough to recognize when they're sort of turning the curve or not behaving or focusing like they should be. Another thing you can do, it's called reconnect, and it reconnects the nerve centers in the solar plexus area and the third eye chakra. So you put your finger on the third eye, you put another finger inside your belly button. You can be through your clothes, and then you raise up and take a few deep breaths and hold it for about 5 seconds, and then release, and it reconnects the nerve centers, the meridian centers in the brain and in the body. So that can help sort of bring down that energy for a kid with ADD or ADHD. What else? Oh, so there's also essential oil solutions, of course. So 2 big things. One is focus, and then the other one's getting rest. So kids with ADHD, ADD have a lot of trouble resting. And that's so important for so many reasons. And I'm not going to give you guys a lecture today on why rest is important. But during the day for focus, one of my favorites and easiest to use is Citrus Fresh. Okay? And so you can diffuse it if you're homeschooling or if your kiddo's at home. Diffuse it. You can put a few drops on pulse points on the wrist or rub some on their chest. And I can also, I'll add a recipe for a blend that I make that works well for that too. Another good one is lavender. And so you might even want to combine the two. They work well together. And so you could do the same thing. You could put it on their chest near their thymus gland or on the wrist points here. And then the second part, so that's for during the day, right? During the day, citrus and you see those? Lavender, okay? And then at night, we're gonna use this lavender again. We're gonna use peace and calming to help them get a nice restful sleep. And you can diffuse that in their room. You can put it on their toe tips. I like to put a little bit of lavender behind their ears and then peace and calming, there we go, on their toe tips. So that's really, really important for kids that have been suggested or diagnosed with ADHD or ADD to try those roots. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to post them, and I can come back and answer them as needed. Like I said, I'll also put a recipe blend in the comments for you to download if you so choose to. And let me make sure, one of the exercises, if you're in public and they can't sit still, your kiddo can't sit still, or if they're at school and they can't sit still, doodling helps. Have them draw figure eights with a pen or a pencil. And if they can't draw figure eights, if you're sitting in church, for example, you can have them draw figure eights on the palm of their hand. If you're somewhere where they can move around a little bit more, or they're a little bit younger, you can have them play games like drawing a figure eight with their arm, and you can't see what all I'm doing here, but drawing a figure eight with their arm, and like an elephant trunk, you know? But the figure eight is very specific in right and left brain connection, and so it's important that the shape be a figure eight, but it works really well. Nellie wants to know if I can talk about the cedarwood vetiver lavender blend. Sure. So that's another great blend to use for ADD or ADHD. The reason why I left it out is because I've had some people who have come to me and said vetiver is irritating to their kiddos, and so I usually use a blend without it. But cedarwood, vetiver, and lavender are awesome to use for ADD and ADHD. Again, you can apply it topically, you can use it aromatically. You know, when I send kids off to school, they're covered in oils. Any test day, again, even though my kids aren't ADHD or ADD, any test day I will send them with something for focus. And so a lot of times it's a combination or a single oil of cedarwood, vetiver, lavender, along with some sort of citrus. Sometimes it's petitgrain. And again, we put them on the pulse points and we have them rub right here on their chest. Awesome. Well, peoples, hopefully that answered your questions. If you don't have any more questions, I'm going to get back to work, and I will add that recipe below. And the recipe I'm going to add actually does have cedarwood and lavender in it. And then you can elect to add or keep the vetiver. So, toodles, thanks for watching.